some positive energy today. All right, my positive energy is soaking in. So let's talk about Snow White. What's going on with the movie here? I mean, is it really 2 stars out of 10, like IMDB says? We'll cut to the chase on the front end. I'd say no, it's not that bad. It's not gonna change your life. Definitely didn't change mine. But I would venture to say, I don't normally wear tinfoil hats, but somebody behind the scenes is doing the ultimate troll on the IMDb reviews, because the movie's probably, it's like 6 out of 10 stars. That's what it should be. Critics are giving it in the 40%, 45, 50% range. They're divided. Some people say it's all right. Some people say it's not. What do I think as a father of 2 small kids that has gone to every Disney live action remake the last several years? Snow White is not the best one, and it's also not the worst one. But the thing is if we go back and we look at some of the others, they haven't been graded or judged quite so harshly. So what's gone wrong with this one? If we kind of push to the side the conspiracy theory element and say that this movie didn't have a whole bunch of troll reviews that were not reviewing it poorly, let's say it was 5 stars out of 10, there's a whole lot of room for improvement. So what happened? For one, you had a cast that was talking very confidently and critically of the original 1937 classic, which was Walt Disney's first animated feature. It's full color, beautiful film. Go back and watch it. We turned it on the other day, the day before we went to see the movie, and just magical, right? And when you think about a period of time where everything was done by hand 90 years ago, it holds up pretty well. We knew in the 2020s era that there's going to be a reimagining, that there was going to be some culture built in and baked in that would change. You still kind of have this Renaissance fair era thing happening, right? You have castles, you have the town square, the common folk, you have the queen, you have a character like Snow White. Stylistically, the movie looks and feels relatively true to its source material. Colors, woodland creatures, characters. The dwarves element, I think, was a little bit strange because they looked too CGI. I think they would have been better suited just to work with real people. So that was one thing that some people didn't like. But I've also heard this argument that by making them a little more stylized and computer generated, it looked a little more like the cartoon. Some kids might like that. So as we're watching the movie, I will say the dwarf sequences were the ones where my kids seem to be having the most fun. There are some jokes and some gags in there. There's a scene where they're like flying through their cave, mining. What's gone wrong? Outspoken lead actors. The movie's kind of just been spinning in some kind of a developmental hell, I guess, for the last few years. Rewrites, shoehorned changes, all kinds of things baked into it. It's kind of like, okay, maybe we need to add another pinch of salt here. Let's go ahead and slip another banana in there. We're gonna make this mushed up mess into something palatable or digestible. The movie kind of gets off, in my opinion, on the wrong track because you have all these common folk in a town square and they start singing and it's like pitch perfect. There's nothing real human about the voices, and they're also way too cheery. Like, these are poor people and in times that are not that great, and they're cheering and singing joyfully. And I guess they're trying to set the tone that under the original king and queen that life was pretty good. They got pies delivered to them and that kind of thing. Okay, great. Without a whole lot of spoilers, obviously the evil queen has got to take shape at some point. The evil stepmother trope that Walt Disney loved to incorporate as often as he could. Keep in mind this is a grim fairy tale too, so it's definitely a dark story. Gal Gadot is beautiful as the evil queen, but she's definitely like very one-note sort of actor on the movie. There's no depth. She's just a sociopath from the beginning, which I guess matches up a little bit with what maybe they were trying to deliver to make her a more modernized sort of enemy, like you'd see on some Netflix streaming series, only she's wearing like this crown and queen's costume the whole time, so that's already kind of a weird thing happening. It's like if a Netflix thriller series writer came in and said, hey, we're gonna style you after this crazy lady that lives down Cherry Lane from 1998, and we're gonna turn this into a show. Like, okay, that didn't really work. So the girl playing Snow White, Rachel Ziegler, beautiful voice. She is probably the redeeming factor of the movie. Then you have the element of the prince character, who's kind of this loser guy that steals from the castle. She saves him, and they kind of eventually work their way into a kiss, which brings her back to life after the poison apple. Again, none of this is really big spoiler stuff because surely you've seen the original movie. So they sort of zig and zag their way through. They figure out a way to land the plane. I suppose there's a sort of happily ever after that happens. They have the classic hi-ho song in there. They have Whistle While You Work. Yeah, okay. Hi-ho and Whistle While You Work. Those were good. I think they took out the Someday My Prince Will Come song, and some people were upset about that. They replaced it with a song called Princess Problems, which was a catchy pop number, a lot less pitch corrected. It actually was where the music shined. Backtrack a little. The movie has two arcs happening at the same time, and I think this is part of where the identity crisis in the new Snow White is. You have musical element of the movie, which, I mean, we were expecting that, but then you also have this sort of epic adventure where this bandit and a bunch of other woodland characters are trying to save Snow White, to help her escape the evil queen. And so it's sort of got this Lord of the Rings aura to it, superimposed on top of all this like cake with frosting on top pop music. It's just an odd balance of the two. So why I'm calling it an identity crisis, because it's like, okay, you need to either be one or the other. Several years ago, there was a movie, Snow White and the Huntsman. It was another kind of mediocre, middling film. It was entertaining, but Kristen Stewart was the lead actress, and if you've seen Twilight, you know there's just not a lot of emotion expressed. So there wasn't a lot of sweetness to Snow White, and that's one thing that I would say about the Rachel Ziegler character. There was some sweetness, but also a little sass beneath the surface. And I think some of that is because maybe we've seen too much of her in the public limelight. In conclusion, I think this movie was budgeted, they say somewhere between 250 to 270 million. Opening weekend, I believe the take was 87 million worldwide. US gross was 45 million. When you look at movies that have been built up or hyped up this much with that kind of budget in the past, it doesn't take 4 or 5 weeks to make its money back. Usually it's only 2. And so I think because there's been such a huge amount of time from the time that it was initially talked about to once it finally got here, the fact that it's just kind of middling or mediocre, it doesn't really stand the test of time. If you go out and you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, the audience is a lot more favorable. And this ties back into my comments there at the beginning about the 2.0 IMDB tinfoil hat theory. I don't think it's as bad as some would lead you to believe. It's not for everybody. There wasn't a lot in it where I was going, oh man, this is terrible. The script was not bad. The singing, all that was pretty good. It was just stylistically some choices and some decisions. Sets, costumes, the look of dwarves, look of woodland creatures, that kind of thing that just kind of, it's just all over the place, up and down, and a little too unsure of itself. And I think that's part of what it was. It was trying to pander to audiences all over, and you couldn't really tell when you tried to pull into the subtext what was the real message. The message was that Snow White was the hero to help overcome the evil queen with some help from kind of a half-witted accomplice who she happens to fall in love with along the way. I don't know. I think I'll stand with the whole 6.2, 6.3 out of 10. So I was entertained. And some of the songs I was kind of nodding my head. I looked over at my kids, they were kind of bouncing around and into the movie. So I can't say it was completely a flop. I don't really know what else to expect when I think about going to see The Beauty and the Beast, or I think about going to see Aladdin, or even recently the Lion King, or the Jungle Book, or the Little Mermaid, or this Mufasa, this kind of Lion King spinoff. None of those changed my life, right? They were all kind of in this exact same quality or caliber. So for all the negative press and publicity, I just don't think that it's totally being graded fairly. I don't know, I'm curious what other people think. I think most people would say, it's alright, it's not great, it's alright. So I guess that's the final takeaway. Go in with your expectations level set, drink you a cup of positive energy tea, and don't jump on the bandwagon to just give it 1 or 2 stars because everybody else is. Think for yourself, look at it creatively, try to figure out, okay, what worked here and what didn't. If I were to make a list, and I don't have one in front of me, I'm sure I could come up with 50 things I didn't like and 50 things I did like. And that's what I try to do with almost any art. It's okay to be critical or skeptical, but don't allow your skepticism to override the magic of going to a movie with your family, making memories, that kind of thing. So, anyways, that's it. Hi ho. Hi ho. It's off to work we go.